Hey Justin, I'm sorry to hear you're not feeling so well, and I guess even sorry to hear that on top of that you get a test on Friday. So hopefully I can help you out a little bit here with some of these. So basically what I've done, I'm creating a video, and for each page of that PDF you sent me, I'm going to create a separate video so you don't have one long 15-minute video, but maybe a couple short 5-minute videos. And what I recommend doing is after you watch me go through and do them, and kind of explain what I'm doing as we go through it, maybe you watch the video again and pause it at each problem and you try the problem, and then watch the video and to see if you've done the problems correctly or not. So hopefully this helps, and then if you have any questions you can call or email me and we can go from there. And then you can watch these videos as much or as little as you want, so you'll hopefully have them saved on your computer. And they'll be in YouTube, and they'll just be posted on YouTube, so you don't have to download anything. So anyway, these are the basic rules of exponents that we're going to be using. We've got, obviously, if you're multiplying two numbers with the same base, you want to add the exponents. Dividing them, you want to subtract the exponents. And if you take an exponent to a power, you multiply the exponents. So we're just basically going to go off of that rule every single time. So for each one of these problems, I think the instructions said your answer, so once you've simplified everything, it should be in positive exponents. So you don't want any negative exponents. Remember what we talked about last week. When you do get a negative exponent, all you really need to do is just flip the fraction, and then you should be okay. So what I like to do with these problems is, even though there's a negative here, I like to simplify everything before I do anything with the negative. The negative is always the very last step, because sometimes the negatives just cancel out and you don't have to deal with it. So what I do is I take the coefficients or these numbers first, and because it's multiplication I'll do those. So negative 4 and 3 gives you negative 12. Then I move over to, I guess we could do the y's, so y to the negative 2 times y to the third, and because it's multiplication we're going to do y to the negative 2 plus 3, so that gives us y to the first, so that'll be y to the first, and then there's no x, or x to multiply it with, so it's just x to the fourth, and because our exponents are positive, we are good to go with that answer. And then again, same kind of process over here. Going to do the coefficients first, or the numbers first, so negative 3 and 3, so that multiply those, that gives you, right here so you can see it, negative 9. Then b, there's no b there, so I'm just going to go b, and then maybe off to the side, I'm going to go, because it's multiplying, a to the second times a to the, so that's going to be a squared plus a negative 2, which gives us a to the 0, and anything raised to the 0 is always 1, so that would just be multiplied by 1. Anything multiplied by 1 is just itself, so negative 9b. Then we'll move on. I skipped around. I skipped number 3. If there's any of those, some of them they look pretty complicated, and I can do them out for you if you'd like, but I thought I'd leave some for you to try as well. So again, all the properties are the same. You just have to kind of follow my lead and just be careful as watch your arithmetic as you're multiplying. So over here, there's really nothing to multiply in here. So we got an x, we got a y, nothing we can do. But because they're in parentheses and that's raised to the 0, like we said up here, anything to the 0 is 1. So this whole thing actually just becomes 1. Then it's going to be times x to the negative 2, y to the negative 1/3. Now notice there's nothing to multiply here, so we're technically done, but it's here we've got negative exponents, so we need to get rid of those negative exponents, and as I said, we just need to flip it, so we need to move x to the negative second to the bottom, so it becomes 1 over x to the second times, and then y to the 1/3 becomes 1 over y to the 1/3. We didn't change the exponent or anything, just because it's negative it goes down, so you could then I guess combine them into 1 over x squared y to the 1/3. And because that's 1, it doesn't really apply. If this was like 4, that 4 would be on the top here. So again, we did the negatives at the very end. We've simplified everything, got down to our answer, and then from the negatives made it into our fractions and went from there. So we're going to kind of do the same thing up here. So now this one's a little bit more complicated. Now what I recommend is do each parenthesis one at a time. Don't try and do too much on these complicated problems, because they look like this to try and freak you out, especially ones like this over here, and actually looking ahead there's some other complicated ones too. So just try to take the complicated ones and separate them into a bunch of simple problems, smaller, easier problems to work with. So here we've got x to the 3/2, y to the 3/2, 1/4 to the 1/4, so on and so forth. So what I would recommend, let's first focus here. Now because we're with the parentheses, you want to distribute and multiply that 1/4 to both of these. So you get x to the 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 2 is 8, y to the, and it's 3 over 2, so it's actually going to be the same thing, 3 over 8. So that's the first set of parentheses. I'm going to kind of keep that in there. So now let's look at the second set of parentheses. So we've got x to the 4th to the 4/3, so we're going to again distribute this to both of these. So we get x to the 4 to the, again that's kind of 4 over 1 because it's a whole number, so 4 times 4 is 16, and then over 3, y to the, and then 4 times -2 is -8, and then it's because that 2 is over 1, it's going to be -8 over, let's see, so 4 times there, and then 3 times 3. So again, we've got some negative stuff in here, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All over y to the -1. So we're not done. We want to simplify the top now. So we got this y to the -1 on the bottom. We're not going to worry about that now. We're just going to take a look at the top. So because we're multiplying here, we want to take x to the 3/8, and because we're multiplying that times this x, you want to add them. So it's going to be 16 over 11, or 16 over 3, sorry. And then it's going to be y to the 3/8 plus -8 over 3. And we'll go from there. These aren't going to be very clean numbers, but I guess it's okay. 3 plus 6 is x to the 19 over 8 plus 3, which is 11. Then we've got y, 3 plus that would give us a -5, and 8 plus 3 is 3, or is 11. Sorry, that's what happens when it gets late, I guess. So it becomes 11. So we got x to the 19 over 11, y to the -5 over 11, and that's all over y to the -1. So to finish this off, there's really no x left, so we know in our final answer we're going to have x to the 19 over 11. And then with these, because we're dividing, we want to subtract our exponents. So we got y to the -5 over 11 minus a -1, so that essentially means we're going to add 1, and we're going to need to do a little fraction addition here, so -5 over 11 plus 1, so 1 is the same as 11 over 11, so that gives us 6 over 11. So then our final answer here, I'm just going to rewrite, so we got x to the 19 over 11, y to the 6 over 11, because this is the this exponent becomes that by adding those together. And again, notice we didn't have to do much with the negatives, because when we simplified it all in the end, the negatives kind of went away on their own. So so that's pretty much how those look. Again, complicated. These numbers came out a little bit tricky, so you just got to be careful. So let's take a look over here at this problem and do kind of the same thing. So again, we're going to focus on what's in here first. So with these right here, you want to, because it's an exponent raised to another exponent, you want to multiply that. So it's going to become y. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 over 2. And then I guess if you want to keep going, so that's that top one. Down here, we've got y to the negative 2 and y to the 1/2. So if you want to add those to, now because we're multiplying down here, it's going to be y to the negative 2 plus 1/2. Okay, so we need to add that together, and that pretty much comes out to negative 3 over 2. So y negative 3 over 2. And again, this is all over parentheses, all in parentheses with 5 to the 4th. Now, there's a couple options here. We could distribute this 5/4 in here, and that would just, that would make these numbers a little bit bigger, or we could reduce what's already in here, which I think is probably the easier way to do it. So take this, and you, again, because we're dividing, you want to subtract your exponents. So y to the negative 9 over 2 minus negative 3 over 2. So this right here technically means we're adding. So you get y to the, up here so we can see, y to the negative 9 over 2 plus 3 over 2, which gives us y to the negative 6 over 2. And if you divide those, that simply becomes y to the negative 3rd. So all this in here actually just becomes y to the negative 3rd. So that's sometimes why it's better to simplify before you continue on multiplying. So that becomes y to the negative 3rd, all raised to the 5/4. And again, pause this if you want to do the step and then check it as I do it. So then here again, we're just multiplying this, so 3 times 15, or 3 times 5 is y to the negative 15 over 4 times the 4th. Now because it's a negative exponent and we have nothing else to do, now we want to convert that and flip it so it becomes 1 over y to the 15 over 4. And so then that would be your answer. Alright, so these are all the answers we're looking at. So again, I recommend maybe tomorrow or the night before the test, go through and try these problems again. And once you go through them, then play the video and check to see.